Hi everyone, welcome to This Moment and the Diamond Mothering with Lisa and Caroline. We're here to create a beautiful space for mums.
Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us today. We have with us Anne McKeown. I hope I pronounced that right, very Scottish. And Anne is going to talk to us about her journey and the two awakenings sort of that happen in her life, which are so interesting. She helps women become more empowered or feel more empowered in their life with her company To Empower. She's Sydney based and I've had the pleasure of knowing Anne for quite some time. So welcome, Anne.
Thank you. It's great to be here, ladies. Really appreciate the invitation.
Oh, welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. So, I was going to say, it's gorgeous to hear your Scottish accent. Because I
like yours too. We're Celtic sisters, aren't we?
That's it. Yeah, amazing.
It's wonderful, isn't it? So much variety in these conversations now, even though two of us are in Sydney, but you know, we could pretend. So Anne, I was really interested to hear your story about like what happened to you in your late 20s, because often what does it, like so often we hear these stories where people have had incredible tragedy and terrible adversity, you know, that has really rocked their world, turned their life upside down. But as a result, they've found some incredible inner power, or the feminine force, as we like to call it. Would you like to share that story with us?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking me to share it. It's really funny because although it's something that happened a long time ago, I haven't actually shared this story until quite recently. I don't know why. I think we just kind of tend to bury things, don't we? And it's not until you've got hindsight that you can realize what a catalyst some of these things are. So basically, I was very ambitious in my early 20s and went on the corporate ladder and wanted to have all the material gain and whatever that we're encouraged to have when we're young. And I reached the age of 28 and I just felt I had it all and that life could not get any better. And I was right, because just after that, it all came crashing down. So I'd managed to work up to have a really good position within one of the large oil companies. I had my own apartment, company car, traveling overseas, a really beautiful boyfriend, surrounded by a great family. And then my boyfriend was killed in a car crash. And when I said, you know, where is he? I have to go and see him. What hospital is he in? His friend said to me, you can't, his wife is with him.
Oh my God.
So I was like, wife, what the hell are you talking about? And of course, what goes through your mind immediately is, I was blaming myself. It was like, how could I have been so stupid? How did I not see it? Instead of thinking what a bleep he is, I was very self-effacing and you know, how could I have been so stupid? How could I have been so dumb? And people around me were saying, well, he's a liar and a cheat. You're better off without him. There's plenty more fish in the sea. And that wasn't really what I wanted to hear. And there was shame really to have been with a married man. And I felt quite guilty. And so then I just didn't talk about it. And around the same time, my boss at work had asked me to make people redundant that I'd been working with for 8 years to help them build their business. And I said to him, there must be another way. I can't do that. I can't go and tell these people that now, having helped them build their livelihood, we're getting rid of them. And he said to me, well, if you don't, someone else will. And both of those things happened in the same week. Now, if the universe is trying to tell you something, that was two whammies in 1 week. And of course, I just went into complete depression, really. I wasn't able to really grieve. I wasn't invited to the funeral. In fact, I didn't know about the funeral till afterwards that it had even taken place. I sort of started to drink too much and hide under the duvet, and my mum called the doctor, and the doctor came and gave me pills to sort of dull the pain, but of course we know they never deal with the problem. And so in the end, I was just so kind of miserable, and I had lost faith in human nature, really. Everything had lost meaning, like nothing meant anything to me, not even all the material stuff that I had. And so I decided to quit and give it all up, and go volunteering. And that sounds very altruistic, but it actually wasn't. Other people saw me as this really brave globetrotter, but I just felt really crushed and sad and like a runaway.
Yeah, it's really it's an interesting experience after you've had a relationship and you look back and you think, how could I have not seen that? Like, that is something that I've wondered after the end of both of my relationships, and just gone, how did I actually not even see that? It was like there's a whole part of the relationship that just I was completely unaware of. And when you're like you're a smart, capable woman, and yet you just have no awareness in that area. It's like absolutely mind-boggling, right?
And they say love is blind. and I think that's it. And I think, you know, we want to believe the fairy tale, or that everything's going to be okay, or and so we do. And I mean, who gets into a relationship thinking someone's going to cheat on you? I mean, nobody gets into it thinking that.
Yeah, that's really interesting when I hear you say that, because when you say love is blind, actually, because before that I was thinking it's like a blind spot that we have in our perception. You know, that that's why we don't see it, because there is some kind of a trauma or something that we're not owning in ourselves, that creates a kind of like a blind spot. When you say love is blind, then, you know, really we're getting into a relationship which is kind of unconscious, because unconscious of the work that we need to do on ourselves, that we're attracting in somebody who's not good for us. And then, you know, the healing begins, then the healing journey begins when we kind of have to wake up to that, you know. And it's this stark kind of like a push, like we talk about the push and the pull a lot here, you know. It's like it's a big wake up call, isn't it? And
it was a big push.
A big push.
Yeah. And so then basically I started off just I used to have a dancing school when I was very young. I started a dancing school when I was 17. And one of the things that I saw an advert for was to teach dancing in America at a kids camp. And I thought, you know what, I'll go and do that. It's a no-brainer. It'll be fun. It'll be easy. It'll get me away from everything. And so I did that. But I took I wasn't a very good camp counselor, because I took a lot of heaviness with me and a lot of sadness with me. And I didn't even really feel like dancing, never mind teaching anybody else to dance. And after 6 months, I went home and I thought, right, I'll be fine now. And within a couple of days, I just thought, golly, I have to get away again, because immediately all the memories came flooding back. People were saying to me, oh, you're going to get a new job. They were saying, oh, you've missed Coronation Street on the telly. And I was like, I don't care about soap operas, you know. So I actually felt more lonely and more distant from people than ever before, because they just had no idea what I was going through. And so I signed up to go to Africa, and this was a fantastic experience. So it was with an organization called SWE, and it's the Surgical Eye Expeditions is what they run. And it's basically a bit like Fred Hollows in Australia, where they do cataract operations on the blind. And my job was as project manager. So I had to raise funds, build a makeshift hospital out in a small village in Zimbabwe, where the locals just didn't have transport or money to go and get this operation. And it was very interesting to see these people that had nothing, who were quite content. And actually what they had was each other. They had community, they had connection. And at the end of our project, when they had all been given their sight, one of them said to me, "Oh, we have a gift for you and your team." And I was thinking, what could they give us? I mean, maybe sugar cane or something. I mean, they literally had nothing. And they got us all together and they sang us a prayer of thanks. And they were banging on old drums and they were clapping their hands and they were stamping their feet, and it was so moving. And it was like a spiritual moment that us as a team were just so touched, and we were all in tears, and it was priceless. And there was me thinking materially again, you know, what can they give us? Not realizing that there was greater gifts, priceless gifts. And so that was the beginning of the healing through helping others, because I started to find a new purpose. It was much more rewarding than the financial reward, and I didn't need the money. And I needed their connection and their thanks and their community. I felt more comfortable and a sense of belonging there than I did at home. And I went back home and the same thing happened. I just couldn't settle, and I thought, no, and I looked again. So then I went to Australia. Actually, I came to Australia and I rented a room, and it turned out it was a Catholic nun that owned this house, but I didn't realize that at the time because she was a modern nun, you know, she didn't wear the habit. And she and I got chatting in the evenings, and she asked me if I'd help out at the St. Vincent de Paul Centre. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And she said, good, I'll see you in the morning then.
Very persuasive.
And there I learned, I suppose you would call it, the art of acceptance, because it was homeless people and alcoholics. And, you know, at first I found it quite abhorrent, and I didn't want to be there. And then I almost, as I got to know these people, could see my pain reflected in their eyes. Like we were all carrying a burden. We were all carrying a sadness. It was just each of us, something had driven them to drink. Something had driven them to being homeless. Some of them had driven them to be on drugs. I was lucky that mine drove me to volunteer, but you know, there's something within all of us that it's a cry for help. And she was just an amazing woman who had a huge inner peace and dedicated her life to the service of others, and helped me to see that was a way to find healing. And she actually, at one point, she said to me, you know, you're doing all the right things, but your eyes aren't smiling. And I was like, what's she talking about? You know, because I smile, you know. And she's like, you know, what really brought you here? And she started to chip away. And I was like, no, I just want to travel, and I've had enough. And because I was too ashamed to tell anybody. I'm not telling a Catholic nun I was with a married man, for goodness sake, you know. And anyway, she kind of managed to crack my shell and broke me open and allowed me to grieve and to have a hissy fit and ask for forgiveness and move on and come up with a new plan. And, you know, and so that whole tapping into human nature and connection with people and community just became what my life is all about.
That's such a great story, like such a great story, you know. And so it just so sums up the way, the healing way, you know, like being able to share our story, having someone just hold us in that space and just support us so that we can share our story.
That was it.
And the connection, you know, like the giving of service, getting off ourselves, and just, wow.
Yeah. And just listening, like her just listening, you know, it was just, and in fact, I had a client today and I said to her, oh, you know, it's 40 minutes and you've only got 20 minutes left and we haven't done this and this and this. And she said to me, you know what, Anne, I just needed to talk. And I was like, okay, we don't need to sort everything.
Yeah.
Just let people talk. And we all want to talk. Nobody wants to listen.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story, it really is, and you described it so well. Because I felt I'm on the journey with you there. It's gorgeous because like it's amazing how like difficult, even that block for you to grieve, like it's something that's hard for you to tap into until you had somebody that you could trust. So you had that safe space that was kind of non-judgmental or whatever, even though you had your perception of her, I suppose, as being a nun and whatever, but she had the
that's right
capacity within herself,
that's
to be able to recognize it in you and then to be able to hold the space for you, amazing.
And it was a huge lesson for me with everyone that I met, because I was judging that nun by being a nun, and then judging the down and outs for their state in life, and and really when we pull back the layers, we realize that we're all the same. We're all struggling through life and putting on a mask on our happy days and not letting anybody see us on our sad days, and I think one of the beautiful thing about what you ladies are doing in the world, the age that we're in now, is that people are going, actually, it's all right to admit that you're struggling. And in fact, if you don't admit that you're struggling, you can't get help. And that was what happened to me for so long.
Yeah, that's it. And I think actually when the way, it's funny when you say you were kind of seeing them differently than yourself, and then all of a sudden then you realize you were the same, because I think like it's like that that's a symptom. When you think you're better than somebody else, that's a symptom that you have this insecurity in yourself. Right. Because it's a protective shield. As long as I feel myself, I'm better than those, I'm not accepting my own pain,
And for me, the better than was instilled is, get a corporate job and climb that ladder. And it was all about status and power dressing. Do you remember the padded shoulders, you walk about. And I remember getting my first leather briefcase and thinking I was God's gift to corporations, it's like, so it's all of that. And then we believe our own bullshit, it's like, oh my goodness, how could I really have thought that was all okay,
Like you were on the search for meaning, like your life brought you on that path, like to find meaning, that you were kind of starved to that, really, like more than anything else, And it's interesting, like what you're saying about even the culture, that you're going back into Scotland and you just didn't feel like you fit in anymore. Like, the way you're like a jigsaw puzzle, and it's just like, okay, I'm just different now. I don't fit into that slot anymore, so you can't go back.
No.
And then you have to go forward, kind of way you have changed, just like, so there's no going back, because you don't slot into your own life.
So and it's scary, because you don't know where you're heading. It's the unknown. It's, it's out of your comfort zone and all the things we talk about. And it's easy to say to somebody, oh, just get on with it. But doing it is really hard.
And that takes a lot of courage, right? So you actually had the courage to step out of your comfort zone and leave countries, or like a lot of people resist that because they don't quite have that courage, and then worse things happen, like that. I guess would be the start of mental health issues and all sorts of things, because they're actually just trying to cope with how they're feeling in that same framework of pressure and support and just not fitting and not belonging, and it just gets worse, the feeling it does, doesn't it? Like it just gets worse and worse until it actually can sort of be released.
And what's really interesting is that if I had never done that traveling, I would never have met my husband, because I would never have married my husband. He would never have married me because when I came back from doing all my travels, a mutual friend was getting married, and we used to work together in this oil company. And I used to see, he was brought up in Africa, and he's English, but his father was a geologist, and they were in Africa for a long time. And he was very down to earth, didn't care about materialism and stuff. And I used to think, oh, he's not very ambitious. He's, not my type. And he used to think that I was so kind of up myself. I just thought I was God's gift to the oil industry. And so we never really got on. But when I came back, he'd actually quit the organization as well and gone to Spain and done an MBA. So he became all business mannered, and I had gone all bohemian. And so when we got together, it was like we crossed over. And he said to me, it was through talking about my experience in Africa. We both ended up crying, actually, when I was telling him about what I had done in Africa, and he got really teary and I got really teary. We're talking about sunrises and things, and I'm thinking, I've never had a man talk to me about sunrise before. But we both matured and changed and kind of met in the middle again. And he said to me, I don't think I would, this was years later, he said, I don't think I would have ever married you if you hadn't gone and done that travel and that growth and seeing life from a different point of view. So, and it's what you said there, Lisa, about, you know, having the courage to step out of your comfort zone opens doors.
Yeah.
And we grow as a person. And he saw me then as a more attractive person, because I was more rounded. And if I hadn't done that, he told me he would never have married me. So there you go.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. And like, it's kind of like as if, you know, that we were talking about the push and the pull, and the pull, and you were starting to be pulled, and, you know, and could you talk about that? Like, where did your mindset change? How did your mindset change then from, you know, the way you were before to this new kind of way you'd see the world, or your mindset in the world that's drawn you up to today? You know, because it's like as if you have a different way of looking at life, and then a different way of kind of acting in life, or showing up in life.
Yeah, what those people taught me was that they all had a spiritual connection of some sort, you know, whether I'll call it God, right? But they all had a connection or a relationship with God. Now, whether that was that they were Hindu or Buddhism or Catholic or just New Age, whatever, they all had rituals that help them connect with God and go deeper. And by that I mean things like meditation, yoga, prayer, listening to hymns, whatever it was. And it was realms that take you to another place. And I suppose we would maybe call it the unconscious or the subconscious or whatever. Again, we label these things, and I think when we put words on things, we almost ruin them. Because, I mean, what I say now is that for me, success no longer is an image on the outside, it's a feeling on the inside. And so in my life at that point, I felt so successful. All I had was the rucksack on my back and the people that I was working with. But I had this sense of being at one with myself and God. And my mum used to say to me, I love you and God loves you and nothing else matters. And that kept me going for a long time. But what I realized was she never said to me, but you have to love yourself as well.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned. And that if I love myself, then no one else needs to be responsible for me. That I can make my own choices and decisions. And if I'm feeling miserable or being a martyr or being horrible, which I was in my early 50s when I was going through menopause, that it's up to me to dig deeper inside and do something about that. And so that had a really profound impact on what I was going to choose to do when I did eventually go back home. So I did go back home, and I met my husband Ben at this wedding. And what was really funny was he told me that day he met me at the wedding, the morning of, he'd been given a phone call to say that he'd got this job in Spain. So I thought, I've just met this guy and now he's going to go off to Spain. And as I said, I was struggling to settle in Glasgow. So he said, why don't you come with me? And I thought, oh, I'd love to do that. But I was a bit wary because, you know, one's bitten and all that. So I took my time, and I went and learned Spanish, and I did some things over there on my own in a different city, and sort of kept in touch with him and whatever. And then I eventually did go over and we got married. When we had our kids, I got a job in a local high school as a coach working with kids that struggled. I was really just an agony aunt. I got into the pastoral care department. And these were kids that were literally banging their heads against a wall in a classroom because they had no support. No, you know, at home, maybe mum was an alcoholic and dad was on drugs, or they were unemployed, or there was just all this trauma going on at home. They were bright enough kids, but they had nobody that believed in them, nobody to guide them and show them. And so I got this job, and I loved it because it was school holidays and school hours and fitted in with the family and everything. And when we chose to move here, I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? So I didn't work for a number of years and became a stay-at-home mum because my husband traveled, the kids were young. And then when I hit menopause and 50s, I thought I have to do something for me because I'm going to be a really clingy mother when my girls are ready to leave if I don't get myself sorted. So I started to put out feelers, and I just asked around if anybody else felt the way that I did in midlife, like really dissatisfied. I felt quite angry inside. And we have got a beautiful life in Sydney. And I thought, all you've been through, surely to goodness, you can sit back and appreciate what you've got. But I tell you, human nature is a funny thing. And we can repeat the same behaviors and the same mistakes and the same. And I knew that I was being horrible, and I knew I was being I don't want to swear on your podcast.
Go ahead.
I knew I wasn't being very nice, and I was being a bit of a martyr, and it was all woe me and life's hard, and nobody cares. And anyway, I put out this thing, and a friend said to me, why don't you start a meetup? Because she said that way you'll meet new women. And because a lot of the mums from school, like, we would get together and just bitch about our husbands, and I'd kind of had enough of that, and they were kind of moving, and I was really good at it, and I just thought, I've got to break this pattern. I was almost looking forward to it, and that's when I knew I wasn't good for me. I was getting addicted to this, and I just thought, no, I need to get away from this. So anyway, I put out this meetup thing, and it was about self-empowerment for women, and I had 60 women sign up in the first week.
Wow.
And I was like, I think I might be onto something here. But it was just for me to meet new friends, and so once a month we'd get together. It's been about four years ago now. And every month I would share an NLP technique or a positive psychology thing, because one of the things I also did when I came back from my travels was start to look into spiritual connections, as well as how does the mind work, what is the subconscious, and how do we break patterns of behavior. And so for the last 25 years I've just been absorbing and learning and loving all of that. So I started to share it with these women, and sort of unwittingly became the leader of this group. And then they started to say to me, look, I don't want to share everything in front of everybody. Could you coach me one-on-one? And I was like, I don't know. I suppose I could. And so they would come to the house and sit on my sofa and pay me $50, and we talked for about 3 hours. And that's how my business kind of started.
Wow.
And it just grew from there.
Yeah, it was really organic, wasn't it? Really organically just grew out of your journey. Like, that's amazing.
If anyone had said to me, start a business, I would have immediately thought, I've no idea how to run a business. I don't know anything about tax. I don't know how to employ people. Where would I get an office? Because to me, a business is all those things.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that actually you can work from home and use Zoom. And so then the big journey was learning. And Lisa, you and I have been on this journey together with lots of other women that we know, learning social media and marketing and sales and all the things that I friggin' hate. But everybody kind of has to do it, and you have to do it more as your business grows. And a big part for me was to be a role model for my two daughters, because they saw me being miserable, and they were going to school, and I'm saying to them, you can be whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, but then I wasn't doing it. I wasn't walking the talk. And I thought, if they see I've got this lovely life and I'm miserable, what message does that send? So they're actually the two M's in 2M Power. Their names are Maris and Megan. And so they're the two M's. And it's been really interesting for them watching them watching me, for them to realize that even in your 50s, you still don't always know what you're doing, and you still don't always get it right, and life's tough, and you have to reach out and ask for help, and you fail at things, and you know, it's been good. What's really funny now though is if I have a bad day and they come in, they start preaching to me and telling me all the things that I tell them. You know, I can hear my own voice in the background.
They're coaching you.
yeah. But
It's funny, isn't it?
We have a lovely wee thing that I'd like to share with you that I think that other people listening might enjoy. And I started this when I started the business, because I was, when things started to get a bit more stressful, when they'd come home from school at night, to stop us all immediately complaining, we would do this, and we'd put our thumb across, and if we'd had a good day, it would be a thumbs up, and if we hadn't, it would be a thumbs down. And then we would go, oh, you've had a thumbs down, why is that? And we'd allow each other to talk and whatever. And we still do it, and it's just a lovely way of being able to say, you know what, I kind of need a wee bit of, I need a cuddle, I need somebody to listen, I need and for them to see me and my husband as grown adults doing that, it's it just helps them learn that it's a continual growth, I think, you know.
And
that's beautiful.
You need that support, you know, the emotional support is so important, you know, but to share that you need that, you know, at particular times.
But to make the time for it.
You know, to ask within your family, because often we don't, or we go to girlfriends, or we, you know, go to therapists, or we go to, you know, but to in your family say, you know what, guys, I need a hug.
Yes, exactly. And it's just so important. I love that. And it's so simple, you know, just to,
yeah.
You know, you don't have to go into a big, you know, because it's hard to find words sometimes to express things, isn't it? You know, and sometimes if you say words don't do justice, you know, that kind of way. It's just be able to say, I just need a little emotional support here just now. And it'll pass. It can pass then kind of easily, you know, but it's just you're feeling a little bit vulnerable. Yeah. That's gorgeous. That's great.
I think it's a lovely example of the power of the mother-daughter relationship too. Like that capacity to really be the safe space, even for each other. Like, I know sometimes when I've shared things, and my 15-year-old, she just validates me so well, and I think, oh, it's just like so nice, you know. And like, you just think, and I've watched as I've blossomed in what I do, how that it sort of really impacts my daughters, you know. Like, there's this unseen connection between us, and like, it's so powerful.
It's amazing. It really is, you know. And it's funny how you're talking about the modeling, because I was just flash back to me there when I started changing my way of kind of mothering, like, and you know, on the journey of trying to get more authentic in myself, and then showing up. So I changed I've become very conscious in my parenting, you know. And I remember one time then, like, I was about 6 months into it, and I kind of had a bad day, and I started to kind of flip back into my old way. And I remember the kids were like, okay, Mom, where's the butt of mama? Where's the butt of mama? And they were like, oh, where are you? And they were giving me my tools back, like, you know, as quick as they could. You know, like, we don't want the old one back.
We don't want the old mom.
You know, and it was like, because they used to slag me so back and like that. And it was like, oh no, come on, come back. Like, get her back.
And if we think back, that it's so true. And I love that you said that, Lisa, because if we think back, I mean, my mum is a role model. My mum was a 1950s housewife with 6 kids, no washing machine, in a 2-bedroom apartment, dad working, coming home, expecting the dinner on the table. You know, she never really had a life. The family were her life. And, you know, and if she wanted to go out to work, he thought that was shameful. And she'd never really had a good education. And, you know, and so you think we need to break those patterns for the future generations. And each mom in each generation only does the best that they can with what they've got at the time. But we've got so many resources now. You know, I remember my mum being depressed in her 50s and being put on Valium. and she was like a robot. There was no emotion. There was no, and the poor love. I look back now and I just think, golly, if she could have had even a discussion like this now, how supported and connected do you feel that three of us can even just have this really open, honest conversation now?
Yeah.
And my mum never had that, and your mother's probably didn't either.
No, and it's actually,
I think of all that potential, like the potential of these women in my ancestors, going back to whenever, these women that would have had so many capabilities, and very few of them actually ever being able to express their full potential while they were here on this planet.
Yeah.
And like that actually makes me feel accountable. That makes me feel like all that potential is still mine to express. And like that's my duty, right? That is my duty to my ancestral lineage to express all of the potential that my past ancestors could never express. And like, I'm here right now and I have the opportunity to express that. It's like, I'm freaking gonna do it.
Yeah.
And you are doing it.
Yeah.
So kudos to you, because you are doing it, and it's not been easy, but you haven't given up, and it's wonderful to watch you grow and blossom, and it's great.
Yeah, because like when you step into your power like that, like you are modeling that, because also then you're freeing, like I know, like for myself, even the amount of energy that goes into worrying about your mother, if she's not in a state that's kind of happy, and if she's anxious, and if she's depressed or whatever, you're kind of trying to live your life, but you're also kind of worried about her, and you're worried about all her kind of issues that she mightn't have had the tools, like you're saying, generationally to deal with, that's left over. But like I think when women become, I suppose, conscious that like if you're happy and if you're empowered in yourself and you invest in yourself, then that's like giving freedom to your daughter. She can just go do what she wants to do. She doesn't have to be minding you. She doesn't have to be looking after you. She doesn't have to be mothering you.
That's right.
That's a real
and that was it exactly, because I was leaning on them, and the school activities and and I could see all of that coming to an end. And when they get to like year 10, year 9, they don't want you around. And and I thought, gosh, this is as a stay-at-home mum, it was a really hard blow for me, because I couldn't hide behind them anymore. I had to kind of like step out into the open, and it was like, who am I and what am I? And well, I'm nothing. And I mean, how bad is that we think because that we're nothing, but as a mother, it's the most important job in the whole world. Like if we screw up the next generation, what does that say about us? It's a huge responsibility to pass on love and light and laughter, and
I think though, when we get lost in our roles, that's the problem. Like if we think that's just who we are, is our role as being a mother. If we get in touch with our own truths, then everything kind of, it's like a spring that comes from that, So like you are a mother, but you're not just a mother, you are a daughter, you're a wife, you're all those roles, but those roles don't define you, So it's kind of like, so I think if you have the foundation in that, in your truth as your own value and your own kind of essence, your essence identity, if your foundation is in that and you have that sense of that flavor, then you give that to the roles. But then when those roles are taken away,
you're still you.
You're still you.
Yeah. Beautifully said. That's beautifully said, Caroline. Yeah.
I think that's quite common, isn't it? Like, especially for women, like, I mean, you hear it mostly from women, is this sense of, I've been a mum and I've done all this stuff, but I can't actually remember who I am anymore. Or like, I feel like I don't even remember what it is that I want, or, like that there's been so long since I've actually been here for me, so it's interesting how, like, even talking about your journey, Anne, how you sort of had that awakening, like late 20s, early 30s, and came back to knowing who you were. And then all of a sudden you sort of get swept up again. So it's really quite interesting, isn't it, when we look at our lives, and we can, most of us, I'm sure, can look back and see very similar things where we've just gotten so involved in what we're doing that we've really forgotten who we are again. And it's not until we get so far away from that point that we go, hang on a minute, something's really missing and really wrong. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, me. Left it behind. Silly me. You know, it's like, how can we lose that?
Yeah, it was funny. I was reading some things the other day, and we were talking about how men in particular struggle when they retire because their career has been their identity and their life and everything, and their ego gets dented because it's sort of like their ego's boosted by their salary and their status and everything. And I was thinking, you know, that happens to women when we have a baby, because suddenly your ego goes out the window, your power dressing goes out the window, your for most of us high earning ability goes out the window, and you become secondary to this child, and I think that's and while the child needs us, we're kind of happy to fill that role, but then as they get older and don't need us, then that's when we feel lost, because it's like, oh, and then it's rediscovering that ego, because I mean, the ego always gets a bad rap, but actually we need it to push us forward, and it's a driving force, and it can be a really positive driving force if it's heading in the right direction. But I think because we look, and then it's harder for women to get going again, and the amount of women I know who, like, they don't want to charge too much for their services, or they don't want to be seen as boasting on social media, or they don't want to be, you know, they'll not go forward for a job because they're not sure if they're good enough for it. And, you know, and I think a lot of that is because early on we kind of kill the ego to put something else first, which is beautiful. And if we didn't do that, then the world would come to an end.
But it's like a journey, isn't it? You have to kind of let that go, and then you have to try and rediscover. And I love, and I love what you have, a 10-step program, don't you, for women that bring you along on that kind of a plan to kind of get yourself out into the. Is that right, seen on your website? I really like that, because I like the idea of kind of bringing people systematically through a process to try and get them, you know, because it's
what actually happened was the women in my group said to me, what did you do? Like, after I had been running the group for a couple of years, they were saying, but what did you do? And I was like, well, I just started this group. And they were like, no, but it must have been, what exactly did you do? And I had got together my NLP and positive psychology material, and because obviously they didn't come and we just chatted, like I started to put together a bit of a structure for each session, and then with each client I'd say to them, give me feedback, what worked and what didn't. So they said to me, what steps did you take? And I thought, okay. And so I put it into a course, and it's great because now, even when I get off track myself, I go back to it and I say, practice what you preach.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And I take myself back through the 10 steps. It sounds like AA or something.
Except that's 12 steps.
It's always 12. Still a great program, so I'm told. But yeah, and it just get that structure, because then we can use the conscious mind and the unconscious together. I think one of the problems we fall into is that we think we should be in either or. So we should either be meditating and calm, or we should be productive and thinking. And it's not. It's when we have that two-pronged approach, and we bring passion and purpose along with a structure and a strategy. That's when it works.
That's the balance, isn't it? Getting that balance right. That's amazing.
And you need that when you're in a body, right? Because you can't, you need to take action, you need to embody what you know. You can't just be spiritual. And it's like, and that is like, we talk a lot about that. It's like this, you know, you need, and in fact, sometimes Carolyn was saying, we're talking about being creative. And remember, you were talking, Carolyn, about the times where when we're creative, sometimes we need to stop and do nothing but go within and just be in that creative space. But then we'll actually move out of it. Like the flow of life actually takes us into these different you know, sort of areas where, you know, at times we do have to sort of go in and be really passive and just allow the inspiration to come, and then there's a time to actually put it out into the world. And
that's right.
and that is the balance, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the breath, you know, the way the in breath and the out breath, in breath and in breath. It's like in the sea, you know, like the waves that go in and out, go in. Like we're part of nature, so we're when we come back into harmony with ourselves, we're coming back into harmony with the forces of nature. So our forces, the principles of life itself, are always kind of the same, you know, for us as the environment as such. So, you know, like that, we're designed to not just be doing and be outputting all the time, because then we get totally, we just go burnout. And then if we're taking the in breath all the time, then we're kind of suffocating ourselves because we're not actually, we're not expressing ourselves. We could be depressed, you know what I mean? We have to express and we have to, so it's in and out balance, like, you know what I mean? Constant balance, and get balance right. So you're taking inspiration and then you're expressing it in whatever creative way that your skills and your talents are, you know, and then you feel fulfilled from that because you're doing what you came here to do, you know. Yeah, so it's such a being.
I love that. Yeah.
So exciting. Well, we're almost at the end of our time. That was like, I can never believe how fast these interviews go.
I know, it's gone very quickly.
That was wonderful. So Anne, if you sort of look back on what you've learned, do you have a saying or a gem or a piece of wisdom, an Anne McKeown piece of wisdom after looking at your life that you might like to share with us?
On my banner, there's a quote which I didn't make up. I stole it from somewhere, and it's "Nothing will change if you change nothing." And so that's the action conscious bit. And I think the Anne McKeown thing that I say to myself every day, and I try and teach my clients, is what I touched on earlier. That success is not an image on the outside, it's a feeling on the inside.
That's
and
great.
I feel successful.
That's gorgeous. Yeah, you feel a kind of a sense of abundance, like it's fulfilled, I guess, isn't it? Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, really is.
Thank you so much, Anne.
Oh, thank you guys. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you for listening.
Oh, it was gorgeous. Absolutely loved it. I feel like I've been on the journey back in time with you.
That's so good. So good to hear people's stories and how it unfolds. Like we're like a flower, aren't we? The way we unfold in our life. We give ourselves such a hard time, and really it's just this beautiful blossoming that's very natural, you know. It's just a celebration of life evolving.
Yeah. And I think never ending too. And I think that's been a big thing to bring me peace. It's like there isn't a destination, you know, just take it one day at a time and make the most and do your best, and then tomorrow start again. And you know, and because I think you're right, we're very hard on ourselves, and that's when a lot of the negativity and self-talk can bring us down. But it's really surprised me getting your message, Lisa, because I have just decided this year, my goal for this year is to put this story into a memoir and get it published. And I've had it for 25 years and never done anything with it. And now you're the third person that's asked me to share my story.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's just interesting how, it's the time. And it was, and before I used to think, oh, I need to get that written, I need to get that done. But it was a chore.
Yes. Yeah.
And it just meant the time wasn't right. And I wasn't doing what I'm doing now. So I've got the hindsight. So it wouldn't have been quite as poignant.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, you know, you can see the arc of your story so well, though, for women, you know, the way when they can see the transformation and the arc, because there's a few transformations that happened, you know, it wasn't just one.
Oh, yeah.
There's key points, which is important, because sometimes it could be just on the first. And then, you know what I mean, to show women that there's just kind of unfolding in different ways, or different awakenings that are happening, you know, at different stages, you know, and that's really important. So it would be amazing have a book to, just to go on the journey with you, and then you can get a sense of where you are in your journey, maybe, what women can think of, it's kind of like a guidance map, or GPS.
Yes.
I look forward to reading that then, Anne. We'll have to keep you accountable.
Oh yes, that would be great. I could
Let
really
us know
do
when
with
it's
that.
done. No,
Yeah.
When it's the right time, though, it'll probably just flow. You'll just find it really easy. Often
do you know what? I've
thinking.
actually finished the writing. When you were talking earlier about the in and the out, I could really relate, because the in was all the ideas and the stories and whatever coming, and then the out was, okay, now you just got to sit at the frigging computer and do it,
Yes.
So it's pulling those two together.
Well, that's beautiful. Well, good luck with that. It's exciting, very exciting. Thank you very much for joining us. I just want to remind everyone that we have the Mind Body Spirit Festival coming up. I'm not sure if you're going, Anne.
Yes.
25th of May in Sydney, 2022. If you're watching this video in a few years down the track, you've certainly missed it. In a week and a half, I'll be there. I'm speaking every day on a new consciousness of mothering. Yes. So, and launching my book, which I haven't really had a chance to launch yet. So I'm really excited about that. It's big. Yeah.
Oh, I want a copy of that. I'll buy a copy of your book.
Awesome. Well, if you're going to be there, I'd love to see you. Come along and say hi. I'll have a booth there.
Okay.
So, it'd be awesome to see you.
Fantastic.
Oh, exciting
It's very
times.
exciting. And you're signing, aren't you, Lisa, as well?
Signing,
copies?
I'll have my pen ready. My pen ready.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's great.
While stocks last, is the same.
While stocks last, that's
right. Get there quick. There's a limited amount.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Carolyn. It's been wonderful again.
Thank you, girls. Much. Lovely to see you.
Gorgeous to meet you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.